I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, the pandemic, the lockdown, COVID-19, it was tough. It was very hard on people across the world, but one group was hit particularly hard. You know what group that is? Kids. They had nothing to do with it, and they were caught up in the mess, and they had little control. So, what can you do to help explain the situation to kids who have to wear masks to school every day? Well, Barbara J. Meredith came up with a perfect solution. She has written a marvelous book. It is called Daisy and Friends: What Happened to Yesterday, a COVID-19 Story. And we are joined right now on Spotlight by Barbara Meredith. Barbara, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Yesterday, everything was normal, but today for kids, it's a mess. That's what COVID-19 seemed like, right?
That's what it felt like to children.
Tell me why you wrote the book and what was behind all this.
Well, most of the news broadcasts, which of course was geared to adult language and for adults, and the kids didn't quite understand what was going on. Like on a Friday, they went to school. That next Monday, the schools were closed, and the parents were home. And those poor parents were trying to homeschool who have never homeschooled before. And I just wanted the kids to understand that why it all happened. So I gave examples of what happened to yesterday. Well, yesterday we could go visit our grandparents. Today we have to visit through Zoom or by the telephone. So I wanted them to understand that it's not really scary what's going on. It's just a change of lifestyle.
Absolutely. And you did it through wonderful characters: Daisy the cat, her three doggy friends, H-Dee, Smokie, and Rocky. Have you used those characters in other works before, or were they created just for this one?
This is actually the fifth of my series of Daisy and Friends.
Gotcha.
My other books are health and wellness. There's a toddler rhyming book. So I have all different books, but I try to have it so that kids are learning something. Like outside our window is the changing of seasons by looking out the window and how winter turns to spring and spring turns to summer and the differences. And my first book was How to Stay Healthy with Daisy and Friends. And that was actually I was owner of a daycare center. And that was originally my curriculum. And I thought it would be a fun thing to do for my staff to write it up into a book form. And then I got bored one night and I decided to look up children's publishers. And every one that I sent the manuscript to approved it. So I went and I got found the one that met my needs at the time.
Wonderful. Well, we're glad you did. It's a wonderful book, and we hear a little doggy barking around you, so that must be the inspiration in part for some of your animal characters.
Yes.
And children love dogs, they love cats. I mean, I think it's just such a relatable way for children to learn by having these characters be their guides.
Yes. And they're actually my own pets,
All by the same names?
all by the same names.
That's wonderful.
And
So now you've immortalized your pets, which is great.
yes,
That's wonderful.
and they're charitable books.
Yep.
Portions of all the proceeds go to Kitty Angels of Coventry, Connecticut, Bandit's Place of East Haddam, Connecticut, Protectors of Animals, East Hartford, and that ASPCA.
Wonderful, wonderful. So you're giving back, you're helping kids, you're helping animals. It sounds like a win-win for sure.
Yes, yeah, that's what I'm hoping.
Yep. Tell me about the reaction of kids when they hear these stories. I mean, you run a daycare center, you said, right? So that you get
Yes,
the feedback immediately in a way, right?
I did, yes. So I would read the stories to the kids, and they enjoyed it. They were very happy to listen to it. And since the kids at the daycare actually knew, because I would bring my some of my dogs in
Mhm.
once in a while, so they knew the dogs. And then they got to see it in book form, so they were very excited.
Wonderful. And part of your mission was to break down some of the strange terms to kids. Tell us about that.
Well, I started the what happened to you yesterday with the description so that kids understand the 1 minute.
Sure.
I just
You're grabbing the book there.
I have the book.
Great. It's a pretty book. The illustrations are wonderful as well.
So what I started with was the term COVID-19 and explained it to in a way that kids would understand it. And then pandemic, an essential worker, and the difference between the mask that kids wear now and the mask that they wore for Halloween.
Right.
So it's this so that they could understand what was going on in their lives.
Absolutely. It's a good way to break it down. You wear masks at Halloween. Well, this is a mask, but this mask protects you. I think that's fantastic. What was it like for your own business? I'd imagine you had to close for a while with the pandemic and the lockdowns and the fear of spreading the illness.
Well, actually, I had retired in 2013 because my husband, I wanted to spend more time with him. He had pancreatic cancer.
Mm.
So I wanted to spend his last few years traveling and being with him as much as possible. So
That's
I
wonderful.
retired early.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I understand. Well, going through the pandemic and running a daycare center is something you wouldn't want to be part of anyway, because I'm sure it was extremely challenging to say the least.
Yes, because daycare centers were still open
Right. I guess it was part
because
of the
the essential workers
essential workers, right? Exactly.
had
When
to
did
go
you
to
start
work.
writing your Daisy series?
2010.
2010. And about how long does it take you to write a book?
Well, actually, what happened to you yesterday took me 20 minutes.
Wow. That's good inspiration.
Yes, and I read it to some kids and they liked it. And then I
Wonderful.
sent it off to the publisher.
Great. That's great. Well, it's good you've got built-in kids there to listen and give you a little feedback. Do you have any other adventures for Daisy and her crew coming up that we can look forward to?
I have a book written but not published. It's a Why Does Grandpa Forget? It's a book on Alzheimer's. So kids
Okay.
will understand that why some adults, excuse me, some adults lose their memory
Right.
and
I
that
think
you have to be patient with them and that you shouldn't get frustrated with their grandparents as they lose their memories.
I think it's wonderful that you're addressing these real practical needs for kids in a storybook form. And there are issues that don't really get addressed. I mean, generally in children's storybooks, they learn about sharing, they might learn about bullying, they might learn about excelling in school, but they really don't learn about some of the lessons they need to learn, like coping through a pandemic and also dealing with Alzheimer's. The name of the book is Daisy and Friends, What Happened to Yesterday. It's a COVID-19 story. It's a wonderful adventure. It features Daisy the cat and her three canine friends, H-Dee, Smokie, and Rocky. They are real-life pets to our author, Barbara J. Meredith, and we are delighted to have her here today as a guest on Spotlight. Thank you so much for joining us today, Barbara.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.